Namaskar and welcome. You're watching News Connect. I'm Sakal Bhatt. In the next 1 hour, we'll get you all the top trending national and international stories. But our focus continues to be on ground situation in conflict-ridden Afghanistan. As the big news at this hour, of course, continues to be the repatriation of Indians from Afghanistan continues on war footing. We'll get you the latest reactions on that and the ground situation emanating back in Afghanistan and much more. But first up on News Connect, here are the headlines. 3 aircraft bring back over about 300 Indian nationals from Afghanistan. 2 aircraft return to Delhi's IGI International Airport. Indian Air Force's C-17 aircraft returns to Hindon Air Base. Repatriated Indians thank government for its urgent efforts in bringing them back, recount the ordeal faced in the Afghanistan, further evacuation still underway. Prime Minister Narendra Modi pays his last respects and homage to the late leader Kalyan Singh. Says late Kalyan Singh made public welfare the mantra of his life. Political leaders from across the party also pay rich tribute to the departed soul. Nationwide vaccination campaign continues in full swing. More than 58 crore COVID vaccines administered across the country so far. Active cases of COVID across the country comes down to 3,53,000. Nation celebrates RAKSHABANDHAN today. Festival symbolizes the bond of love between brother and sister. President, Prime Minister wish the nation on this occasion. And now on News Connect, the top story in detail. An Indian Air Force special repatriation flight with 168 people, including 107 Indian nationals, today landed at Hindon Air Base in Ghaziabad from Kabul. Earlier, the first batch of 135 Indians who were evacuated from Afghanistan's Kabul to Doha over the past days were repatriated to India last night. Indian Embassy in Doha, Qatar provided consular and logistical assistance to ensure their safe return. In a tweet, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arvindam Bagchi says that an Air India flight carrying 87 Indians departed from Tajikistan for New Delhi last night. 2 Nepalese nationals were also evacuated. He added that more evacuation flights will follow. Meanwhile, India is airlifting its nationals through Dushanbe in Tajikistan and Qatar. Indian Air Force has already evacuated around 180 passengers, including India's ambassador to Afghanistan. The External Affairs Ministry has urged all Indian nationals in Afghanistan requiring assistance to contact its Special Afghanistan Cell immediately. It has set up the Special Afghanistan Cell to coordinate repatriation and other requests coming from Afghanistan. Indians repatriated from Afghanistan have expressed gratitude to the government of India. Let's listen in.
मुश्किलों से बस यहाँ पहुँचे एयरपोर्ट में भी यहाँ तालिबान वगैरह बहुत मना कर रहे थे मत जाओ किधर जा रहे हो फिर बहुत मुश्किलों से तब जाके हम छूटे बस मोदी सरकार का हम बहुत धन्यवाद दिल से करते हैं मेहरबानी
भारत सरकार जिंदाबाद हमारे मदद की हम लोगों की दिल लेकर आए हमारी सेवा की
And thanking the Indian government for safely repatriating Indians, a returnee has narrated the ordeal of tense situation in Afghanistan.
मुश्किल तो सब अफगानिस्तान पब्लिक का है उधर मगर हम सिख और हिंदू को ज़्यादा क्योंकि तालिबान किसी को नहीं जानते और वो ठीक है और लोग बोल रहे हैं जो हम किसी से काम नहीं है अपना काम करें मगर फिर भी दहशत चली हुई है परेशानी है गवर्नमेंट नहीं है कुछ नहीं है हालात ख़राब है हर एक MP सेनेटर वगैरह वज़ीर मुइन सबके घरों में जाते हैं तलाशी करते हैं उनके गन्स ले जाते हैं उनकी गाड़ियां ले जाते हैं उनको परेशान करते हैं रोज़ 2-2 4-4 बार आते हैं सब लोग परेशान हैं आम लोग तो बिल्कुल ज़्यादा परेशान हैं कोई भी खुश नहीं आप शायद देखोगे काबुल एयरपोर्ट में हर एक गेट पे 5,000 बंदा 4,000 बंदा खड़ा है भारत से थैंक यू कहते हैं भारत सरकार हमारे साथ आज 5-6 दिन से मुसलसल कांटेक्ट किया है हम कोशिश करते हैं जो बाकी बंदे रह रहे वो भी आ जाए
जब उधर गए हम लोग तो कतार एम्बेसी से हम लोग ने इंडियन एम्बेसी से ये किया, तो उन लोग ने बहुत अच्छा रिस्पांस किया। जैसे जेवियर सर हैं, महेश सर हैं, बहुत अच्छा। और भी बहुत सारे हैं उधर जिनका नाम मेरे को पता नहीं है, बट आई थैंक देम ए लॉट। एक क्लिक पे उन लोगों ने हम लोग को रिप्लाई देते थे, आई एम डूइंग दिस, आई एम डूइंग दिस, आई एम ऑन दिस। तो बहुत अच्छा हम लोग को ये एयरपोर्ट तक हम लोग को लाए, खाना वाना खिलाए, फिर हम लोग को एयरक्राफ्ट तक लेके आए। उन लोगों ने बहुत अरेंजमेंट अच्छा किया।
यूएसआई सोल्जर वाला लेके गया कतर में बिना वीसा में लेके गया, लेकिन उन लोगों को उधर कैंप है ना, इसलिए उधर रोका था 2 दिन 3 दिन। उसके बाद फिर हम लोगों को वीसा नहीं था, इसलिए क्या क्या सोल्जर्स पूरा उन लोगों को इंडियन एम्बेसी को कॉन्टेक्ट किया था। कॉन्टेक्ट करने के बाद थोड़ा अच्छा से वो लोग इंडियन एम्बेसी वाला पूरा हम लोग को बहुत अच्छा से सेव करके इधर भेजा।
ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम में सिचुएशन नहीं है, क्योंकि हम लोग को कंपनी भी हम लोग को अच्छा मदद किया। उधर से हम लोग एयरलिफ्ट करके कतर लेके आया। कतर में था हम लोग दोहा में 4 दिन था हम लोग। उधर से हम लोग को इंडियन आर्मी, इंडियन एम्बेसी हम लोग को बहुत मदद किया। अभी कल रात को उधर से हम लोग निकल के इधर आया।
उधर का सिचुएशन बहुत क्रिटिकल था, हो गए तो हमारा कंपनी भी बहुत हमारे को मदद किया इधर लेके आने के लिए। बहुत इंडियन आर्मी का भी बहुत मदद किया। वो लोग का फर्स्ट फ्लाइट था, इंडियन आर्मी का फ्लाइट था। उधर से आने के टाइम इंडियन आर्मी भी बहुत इसके लिए हमारे को बहुत हेल्प किया।
Meanwhile, Narendra Singh Khalsa, who is among the 2 Afghan senators who arrived in India this morning, broke down after the Indian Air Force special flight carrying several passengers from Afghanistan landed at the Indian Air Base. Speaking to reporters, Khalsa regretted that the progress made in the past 20 years in Afghanistan has now been completely lost.
हमारे गुरुद्वारे अब तक तो सुरक्षित है, मंदिर सुरक्षित है, गुरुद्वारे सुरक्षित है, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। सब गुरुद्वारे में हमें चौकीदार रखा है, सब बैठ गए उधर। फिर देखेंगे बाद हालात देख के फिर भारत सरकार से और अफगानिस्तान की जो गवर्नमेंट बन रही है बात करेंगे, देखेंगे कि क्या होगा फिर। और ठीक है, हमारे पास भी आया था जो आपका अकलियत लोग को और आपकी सब कुछ सुरक्षित है, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, आप बैठो, अफगानिस्तान आपका मुल्क है। मगर हम नहीं कर सकते हैं कि उधर बैठिए या उनसे बातचीत हो, या क्योंकि अब 2-3 महीने तक हम समझते हैं कि अफगानिस्तान के हालात शायद बिगड़े। इस तरह जो अब तालिबान की रियासत चल रही है, इससे ज़्यादा शायद हो जाए। भारत से थैंक यू कहते हैं। भारत सरकार हमारे साथ आज 5-6 दिन से मुसलसल कांटेक्ट किया है। एम्बेसडर साहब जो उधर था उस टाइम भी, और अभी इस टाइम मुस्तकिल हम भारत से हमारा कांटेक्ट था। और मुश्किलात ज़्यादा थी, हम 3-4 बार एयरपोर्ट के 70-80 बंदे, मगर हम नहीं पाया जो हम इंडियन आ जाए। मगर हम कोशिश करते हैं जो बाकी बंदे रह रहे वो भी आ जाए।
Let me quickly go across to my colleague Meghna, who has been tracking this story very, very closely. In fact, Meghna, if you could hear me, you were there at the crack of the dawn today morning reporting from Hindon Air Base. Meghna, if you could hear me at around 4 a.m. You interacted with these Indians who have been safely repatriated. Just give us a sense. And undoubtedly, this mammoth exercise of safe repatriation of Indians stuck in Afghanistan will continue. But a sense what you found at the airport in the morning today. At the Hindon Air Base, I'm sorry.
Yes, at the Hindon Air Base, when I have been reporting since the morning, and when the flight arrived, the plane arrived at the C-17 Globemaster that arrived at the Hindon Air Base, definitely once the people embarked, we could see that gleam on their faces. We could definitely see that they breathed a sigh of relief. After that, when we actually tried to get personal accounts from them, how they actually reached the airport, they all were saying that reaching the airport was one hell of a task, one major task that they had to get through. Going to the airport, they have been trying since days and days to actually get to the airport safely. They had been turned down several times, but they did not stop. They did not give up. So after that, they also had contacted the special Afghanistan cell that is working 24/7, that has been set up by the Ministry of External Affairs, and they had contacted there. After that, a number of people had come. Many people have come in groups. Many people have come in, with their family members. We are also seen toddlers, small children who have also, come along. Women have also come along. So definitely, when they were narrating their accounts, they were saying that many of their houses were burned down, many of the houses were raided. Besides that, a number of times women had to be hidden and brought to the airport. Okay. And the scenes at the airport, they said that getting inside the airport was another task, because as we have seen in the videos and whatever we have seen on the social media, the videos that are floating, the pictures that are floating, that there is still a lot of chaos at the airport. People are desperately trying to get inside the airport and escape from Kabul, and that Hamid Karzai International Airport currently being actually controlled by the US personnel on ground. Definitely that place was a task to reach, and after that getting inside the airport and then getting facilitated for repatriation was another hard task at hand.
What's the sense that you are getting, Meghna, in terms of forward action plan? Because we do believe that there are more Indian nationals stuck back in Afghanistan, and as of now they have been airlifted through Dushanbe and Qatar, Dushanbe in Tajikistan. Can you share some more details? Because obviously there is a sense of anxiety for those their near and dear ones could be still stuck in Afghanistan.
We spoke to a few of the people, and they were saying that when the other people got to know that they have been repatriated, they have been evacuated from there, it was a ray of hope for other people also, that soon the Indian government will repatriate them as well. And as the Ministry of External Affairs has reiterated that the evacuation mission will continue, more such aircrafts, more planes will be sent. And this has also been a strategic effort of the Indian government, the Ministry of External Affairs, to actually evacuate people out from Kabul and repatriate them, send them to some nearby country, and then evacuate them and bring them to New Delhi. So definitely this was kind of a strategy that has also been applied, so that a number of people can be repatriated and then brought back in commercial flights or civilian flights for that matter. Besides that, I have our sources tell us that in the last 5 days, the special Afghanistan cell that has been set up by the MEA has received about 2,000 calls, okay, and 6,000 messages, their WhatsApp queries, and about 1,200 mails in the past 5 days. So definitely a lot of people actually reaching out to the Ministry of External Affairs through the landline numbers, the WhatsApp and the email that has been given out. Besides that, we also see that when we speak to a number of people, they also say that they had also reached out to the Ministry of External Affairs through the emergency number that was given, and that's how they were actually advised to when to come to the airport, how to reach, and then the documents were verified, and then they were let in, and also they got to board the aircraft. So this has all been coordinated very well. The reason we see over 300 people who have been repatriated and brought in here today, one from the Indigo flight, one with the Air India flight which arrived at T3 Indira Gandhi International Airport here in New Delhi, and besides that 168 people in the C-17 Globemaster that arrived at the Hindon Air Force Station. So over 300 people are repatriated today, and as we can see, the number of phone calls, the number of messages, the emails that are being received is quite large. So that definitely means there are substantial amount of Indian nationals, absolutely, or the people who want to get an e-visa, or people who want to come to India, get repatriated and come to India. So this is a substantial number, and I believe in the near future, some more days we'll see more repatriation efforts, more flights coming in, and more citizens, Indian nationals and other nationals also, for example, coming in, because we are also seeing today 2 Nepalese nationals were also repatriated. So the coordinated efforts that are being put in is not only to bring Indian nationals, but also to bring other people who want to leave Kabul, get evacuated from there, because the desperate scenes and the horror that the people are narrating definitely tells us a tale which is quite different that the Taliban is saying. The picture, the first-hand accounts of the people are depicting a story that is very different from what the Taliban is saying.
You got to speak to a couple of them, we believe, in the morning, Meghna. We'll come to that, but before that, for our viewers, our overseas viewers are watching this broadcast, Indian nationals still stuck in Afghanistan. You're talking about there is a certain exercise that is already put in place by the MEA, and it's obviously going to be a mammoth task. Could you share more details about the Afghanistan cell and how they can really get in touch, maybe with the consulate there, and the kind of coordination that is between the two countries, the two consulates, etc.?
Yes, for that matter, the Ministry of External Affairs, Sakal, has tweeted about the emergency numbers that are there, the emergency numbers that have been provided by the Ministry of External Affairs, and also besides that, there is also a mail ID which is situationroom@mea.gov.in. Besides that, there have also been WhatsApp numbers given. Earlier, there was only one WhatsApp number given, but we also have other two WhatsApp numbers, for that matter, and besides that, landline numbers have also been given. This is a 24/7 special Afghanistan cell that is working round the clock with over 20 officers that are currently there in the special Afghanistan cell. And besides that, as we are talking, there are several inquiries already coming in at the special Afghanistan cell, and these people are answering to the emails, these people are answering to the WhatsApp queries, these people are also answering to the other queries, be it for the emergency visa applications. Also, they are updating the database that has been received, and if I can tell you,
Sure.
they are also inquiring about the well-being and current status of the people who are calling them and advising them, how to move forward with it. Besides that, the cell is manned by more than 20 officials that have been deployed in the cell, working 24/7 round the clock, and this is one cell which is actually creating a seamless contact, because when we spoke to a number of people, they said that they had come in contact, they had got their papers verified, they had sent in their details to the special Afghanistan cell. That means this place is actually working round the clock and is creating some effect on the ground, so that people are able to easily reach out to them and provide their details. Also, there are a number of people who have been employed by employed by third-party employers. Okay. So the employers are also filling in the details of their employees if they want to go ahead with any kind of evacuation or repatriation. Besides that, the employee can also fill in the details if he or she wants to get repatriated. But Sakal, having said about the details of the evacuation, I would also like to bring in the essence of what the situation was there at the Hindon Air Base today. Kids were playing around at the place where the verification and everything was going on, after the disembarkment, and the women were sitting and having a sigh of relief. Many of the women told us that they were sent back a number of times when they tried to reach the airport, and they tried a number of times to actually get inside the airport, but to their dismay they weren't allowed inside. But finally, after 3 to 4 days, many people didn't have food for many days and just wanted to get inside the airport. But we also know that the US personnel are taking control of the airport. There is a mayhem outside, there's a lot of chaos and desperate scenes outside the airport. Also, the US personnel have to use tear gas to actually disperse the crowd, and amidst all of these chaos, these people were able to coordinate and get to the airport and get inside and board a flight and get repatriated. Is something it's very hard to believe for them also that they have finally escaped that horrific tale that they had seen in the past few days.
Indian Air Force continues the evacuation exercise with the help of MEA, and this, Meghna, now that's how we can really sum it. Would you agree? And this is going to continue. India, come what may, Meghna, will continue to airlift its citizens in Afghanistan, and it is just a matter of time.
Definitely, when we see that the United States has said that they are going to repatriate their citizens by the 31st of August, and if required, they will also extend that window. But India is also, for that matter, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has been in close coordination, has been in close touch with US State of Secretary Antony Blinken to actually coordinate these efforts. And the reason that, military flights have gone in and evacuated citizens and have been able to bring them back here. We earlier had also seen a C-17 that had landed in Jamnagar and then come back to New Delhi as well. So we have seen these repatriation efforts, and not a first for India. India has also earlier been repatriating citizens when and wherever required. So this is something that is being actually planned out properly, and the reason that External Affairs Minister had been also asked at the UNSC media stakeout that how do they look at the situation evolving, continuously evolving situation in Afghanistan. He had clearly stated that we have historical relations with Afghan people, and we actually care for the vulnerable Afghan people. We will ensure that our first priority at the currently evolving situation in Afghanistan is only and only repatriation. How easily can the repatriation takes place? He has also said that they are in close contact with all the minorities there, the Sikh community, the Hindus, the Indian nationals who are there. They are also in close contact, and the database is constantly being updated so that the number can be obtained properly and the repatriation can happen accordingly.
So what we do understand, Meghna, is that India has been allowed to, as of now, operate 2 flights per day from Kabul to carry out this gigantic repatriation exercise to ensure that Indian nationals are safe and they will be brought back safely. Thank you very much, Meghna, for those quick updates. Thank you for joining. And meanwhile, the US officials have said that the country has evacuated 2,500 Americans from Kabul over the past week. The officials added that Washington is fighting against time and space to evacuate people from Afghanistan. Briefing reporters at the Pentagon, Major General William Taylor said 17,000 people have so far been evacuated, including the 2,500 Americans. Assistant to the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs and top Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby has said that U.S. is continuously having regular communication with Taliban leaders for safe evacuations. Addressing a news conference, John Kirby said that some physical violence has occurred against Americans, which is not acceptable.
We know of cases, a small number that we know of. And we don't have perfect visibility, but we know of a small number of cases where some Americans, and certainly, as the Secretary also said in that statement, Afghans that we want to evacuate. It wasn't just Americans that he talked about, have been harassed and in some cases beaten. We don't believe it is a very large number, and in a matter of fact, the numbers would indicate, and I've said this before, that most, by and large, most Americans who have their credentials with them are being allowed through the Taliban checkpoints and onto the gate and into the gate and onto the airfield.
Meanwhile, a plane carrying 2 German A400M helicopters landed in Kabul on Saturday. The 2 helicopters will be ready for operations in Kabul only on missions to be coordinated with the U.S. as per the Chief of the German Forces, General Verzard Zorn. They will only be used to evacuate people in the Kabul area, not further away in cities such as northern Mazar-e-Sharif or the Hindu Kush mountains. Thousands of desperate Afghans clutching papers, children and some belongings have thronged the airport in Kabul in the past few days. The German military has already airlifted almost 2,000 people out of Kabul airport. Meanwhile, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has said that the country ran 4 flights into Kabul, Afghanistan on Saturday night, evacuating more than 300 people, including Australians, Afghan visa holders, New Zealanders, US and British citizens. The news came after the United States and Germany told their citizens in Afghanistan to avoid traveling to Kabul airport, citing security risk as thousands tried to flee almost a week after Taliban Islamists took control. The Australian government has now evacuated more than 550 people from Kabul since August 18th, including Australians and Afghan visa holders. Earlier, United States President Joe Biden once again defended his decision to go ahead with the troops withdrawal from Afghanistan by saying the country has no interest since Al-Qaeda is gone.
Stand squarely behind my decision. After 20 years, I've learned the hard way that there was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces. That's why we're still there. We were clear-eyed about the risks. We planned for every contingency, but I always promised the American people that I will be straight with you. The truth is, this did unfold more quickly than we had anticipated. So what's happened? Afghanistan political leaders gave up and fled the country. The Afghan military collapsed, sometime without trying to fight. If anything, the developments of the past week reinforced that ending U.S. military involvement in Afghanistan now was the right decision. American troops cannot and should not be fighting in a war and dying in a war that Afghan forces are not willing to fight for themselves.
However, U.S. President said the United States, along with its allies, would ensure that Afghanistan couldn't be used by terrorists as their sanctuary.
We're going to retain a laser focus on our counterterrorism mission, working in close coordination with our allies and our partners, and all those who have an interest in ensuring stability in the region. Secretary Blinken is with me today, met this morning with our NATO allies in consultation about the way forward, so that Afghanistan cannot be used in the future as a terrorist base of to attack the United States or our ally.
And former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair has described the US withdrawal from Afghanistan as tragic, dangerous and unnecessary in his first statement since the fall of Kabul to the Taliban. He said the decision was made in obedience to an emblematic slogan about ending the forever wars, unquote. Blair led the UK when it invaded the country alongside the US in 2001 following the September 11 attack. He said the exit of Allied troops would have jihadist groups cheering. Blair also said that Britain has a moral obligation to stay in Afghanistan until all those who need to be are evacuated. The former Labour leader wrote on his website, and I quote, "We must evacuate and give sanctuary to those to whom we have responsibility, those Afghans who helped us and stood by us and have a right to demand we stand by them," unquote. He added this should not be done grudgingly, but out of a deep sense of humanity and responsibility. Amrit Pal, my colleague, joining us with more perspective and the latest. Amrit, I'm sure you heard the latest from Tony Blair. Amrit, but first of all, let's talk about the kind of damage control exercise that Team Biden continues to put in place. Is it really cutting ice with the global community, especially when he says that Al-Qaeda is gone, but at the same time, I'm not going to really allow Afghanistan to be the safe haven for sanctuary, while the chaos continues at, not only the airport, but in Afghanistan by and large?
That's right, Sakal. The chaos continues. There is a lot of confusion after so many days after President Ghani fled the country or went out of the country. We still do not have a government in Afghanistan. So without it's a country which is tottering on the verge of being a failed state. Now, the fact remains that the Americans are going. They are evacuating their people, and President Biden took that decision. So he's receiving brickbats, not so much for coming out of Afghanistan, but the way he planned the exit strategy or the lack of planning of it. So that is what he's receiving brickbats for, and he's trying to defend his decision because it's a decision he took, and now when there is criticism happening, he cannot say that, oh, I do not take responsibility for it. So he's saying, I'm standing behind my decision, and the Americans was dying, there was no point of the war, and he's putting the blame squarely on the Afghans, saying their forces did not fight, we trained them, we give them so much money, their political leadership fled. So, you know, the whole blame is being put on Afghans, and this is what US President is doing.
And while the chaos button still continues to, we've seen the kind of reactions, Amrit, that are coming from Germany, from Australia. They're trying to evacuate their citizens as soon as possible. the larger ramifications of this, now post reactions that continue to trigger from White House, you're closely monitoring the situation, Amrit, but this is not really going to stop in Afghanistan, is it?
The evacuation process?
The diplomatic ramifications of what is happening in Afghanistan, especially the way Biden is trying to justify.
I told you the President Biden is just trying to justify. He's painted into a corner. He's being asked questions about his exit strategy. Was there a strategy at all? What was it planned on? Why was it botched up? So he's being asked that questions, and he's trying his best to defend himself. Though, as you said, it's not cutting ice with his own people and those who are criticizing his exit policy. But in the midst of all this, the scramble for evacuations is on. All countries are trying, including the Americans, are trying to evacuate their own diplomatic staff, their own military personnel, their other citizens and nationals who are stuck in Afghanistan, and the Afghans who have worked with them. But yes, had it happened in a better way, one wouldn't have seen the sort of scramble to leave that we see amidst the continuing chaos there.
But at the same time, this line that US is continuously trying to have some sort of alignment or communication with the Taliban leaders for safe evacuations, a desperate attempt. Amir, do you see this as a desperate attempt to kind of bridge some sort of trust deficit? What more are you picking up on that? US-Taliban communication.
Look, US had been talking to Taliban since Doha, once they started the negotiations at Doha, right into the previous administration, that's Donald Trump's. They've been talking to them. Now, what exactly was agreed, what was not honored, all that remains in the realm of speculation right now, because probably in 30 years from now, when documents are declassified, one would know that what really transpired. What right now is happening is that they are using all means by pleading to the Taliban, by sort of threatening them, by issuing stern messages that do not hinder the evacuation process, or if you attack on our forces, then there will be reprisal. And so in that sense, you see those statements coming out of whether London or Washington DC telling the Taliban that this shouldn't happen, these are the red lines, because if this happens, the West will respond with all its might, or military might, and the Taliban shouldn't get into it.
And when Tony Blair calls this sort of evacuation and the way it's been implemented, troop withdrawal, unnecessary, some sort of, he might not like to admit it, I'm talking about Biden, but the kind of international pressure that continues to mount on Biden administration, the way he made it to the White House, and now his handling or mishandling of the situation in Afghanistan.
Look, Tony Blair's statement should be looked at how that he's in opposition. He's received brickbats, President Biden in his country as well, and also Boris Johnson when the debate in Parliament happened last week. He received brickbats from not just the opposition, but he was being questioned by members of his own government in the Parliament. So, this Tony Blair's statement is no surprise. Everybody is saying that the exit strategy was botched. Tony Blair has gone to the extent of saying that the withdrawal was unnecessary.
Absolutely.
That's his view. President Biden took the decision that the previous administration took to carry that forward and bring the boys back home. The way it was affected, or the agreements to affect it, if they were breached, and at what stage were they breached, President Biden isn't talking about that. He's sticking to that stand that, well, I stand behind my decision to pull out, and I will pull out every American.
Amit, before we wrap up this conversation bit, a little bit more on what more you're picking up on the MEA, the kind of procedures, process, and the gigantic exercise that they've put in place to ensure that Indians in Afghanistan are repatriated safely and as soon as possible?
Well, we saw the planes come in today, two planes, civilian planes in the morning, one from Doha, one from Dushanbe, but basically carrying people who had come out of Kabul. These people were either carried on a UN craft or themselves moved out to these two capitals, the Uzbek capital and the Tajik capital and also to the Qatari capital. So, and one more plane that landed this evening at the Indian Air Base of the Indian Air Force, the C-17 Globemaster, which evacuated more than 300 Indians, some Afghans who were primarily Hindus and Sikhs, and two Nepali nationals. The operations of evacuation are going on. The Indian government says it will not rest till the last Indian is evacuated. Also, the Afghans, the Hindu and Sikhs of the Afghans who wish to come back, they will be considered favorably. And as you know, a special cell has been set up at the Ministry of External Affairs, where people can reach out, and especially for the Afghans, emergency visa or something called as the e-visa MISC has been issued, where they can call in on certain numbers, they can apply online, they can write emails, and the government on a fast track will process them and try and see how they can be brought out either on the evacuation flights that are being sent to evacuate Indians, military or commercial. So that's what the government is doing.
Thank you very much, Amrit. You continue to track this big story with us for bringing us up to speed as of now. Thanks for joining. And since Amrit talked about the repatriation of Indians, remember they arrived in morning, and some of them in fact also talked more about the ordeal that they were subjected to. Let's listen in.
For 3 days in Kabul. So the situation is very intense in Kabul, and fortunately the Indian army helped us to evacuate from Kabul to Delhi.
पूरा काबुल शहर भागने में लगे हैं। एयरपोर्ट पे जो जिसका वीजा पासपोर्ट है उन लोगों को मौका ही नहीं मिले। इतने लोग आम लोग जाने के लिए रेडी है कि हमें लेके चलिए, हमें लेके चलिए। बहुत खराबी है, माहौल है वहाँ का भी।
तालिबान का हम लोग कभी भी परवाह नहीं कर सकते। तालिबान बोलेगा ना, और उन लोग का माइंड अलग है। उन लोग इज अ वेरी डेंजरस पर्सन। our thinking way very dangerous person. So suddenly they are taking government. So we also scared. Last I am working 2007 to 2021. So I am never getting any problem about the Taliban, and because we have the US army guys secured in ours. So that's why we not doing anything. So last minute they are taking all over Kabul. So we have any information, any idea. So immediately we escape that place.
Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that Russia is ready to return to the Moscow format of peace talks on Afghanistan. Moscow format refers to a series of meetings held since 2016 in the Russian capital with representatives of Afghan parties as well as interested countries taking part. Lavrov says that Moscow advocated a transitional power-sharing government which would lead to resolving the situation in the country. The minister was speaking on the prevailing humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. The country has been taken over by Taliban in upending the democratically elected government. Meanwhile, forces holding out against the Taliban in northern Afghanistan have said that they have taken 3 districts close to the Panjshir Valley, where remnants of government forces and other militia groups have gathered. The fighters didn't specify which specific districts they were referring to. Now, in a video posted on social media that you can see on your screens, they are seen speaking to locals and which is close to Panjshir Valley. These fighters are seen encouraging villagers to defend their country and not surrender to the Taliban. Afghan's Defense Minister General Bismillah Mohammadi, who has vowed to resist the Taliban, says in a tweet that the districts of Desaleh, Bano and Pul Hasir in the neighboring province of Baghlan to the north of Panjshir had been taken. And also in Afghanistan, Taliban has released 340 political prisoners in Farah province in western part of the country. According to Shamshad news broadcaster, another 40 inmates were released in central Uruzgan province. This comes after Taliban leader Hizbatullah Akhundzada earlier on Thursday ordered the release of political detainees from all Afghan prisons. Afghanistan is witnessing its worst ever crisis in decades as the Taliban's control has forced people to flee the nation afraid of the atrocities. Afghans have flocked to Kabul airport in order to flee the Taliban, and they continue to do so. An Afghan woman gave birth to a baby girl on board a U.S. evacuation aircraft on Saturday, moments after the plane landed at the Ramstein Air Base in Germany. According to U.S. Air Mobility Command, the woman was part of a group fleeing the Taliban in Afghanistan and was on the second stage of an evacuation flight which had taken off from a base in Middle East. Still images showed the moment medical personnel rushed to help on the tarmac of the airbase after the Afghan woman was taken out of the plane. Both the mother and baby were transported to a medical facility and were in good condition, a tweet by the Air Force read. Thousands of desperate people gather and continue to gather at Kabul airport every day in the hope of fleeing Afghanistan's new Taliban rulers. At least 12 have been killed in and around single runaway airfield since last Sunday. Also, a video of a fire ravaging at a warehouse in Demzang area of Kabul was posted on social media. The site is understood to be close to Kabul Zoo. The cause of the fire is yet to be ascertained, but further details were not available as of now. All right, and we now move on to some other international stories that we are tracking for you on News Connect. Shifting focus from Afghanistan to Peru. In Peru, hundreds and hundreds marched on Saturday to call for a return to in-person classes more than 17 months after Peru's schools were closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Parents are calling for a plan to start up physical classes again amid easing COVID-19 cases in the country. President Pedro Castillo has said that schools in Peru will reopen once all citizens have an opportunity to get vaccinated, but touted a return to classes in some regions. According to official reports, over 20% of Peru's population is fully vaccinated. Peru has the highest pandemic death count per capita in the world, with some 2.1 million infections and nearly 200,000 coronavirus-related deaths reported. Israeli aircraft struck Hamas sites in Gaza late on Saturday in an escalation of hostilities after earlier cross-border gunfire seriously injured an Israeli soldier and wounded 41 Palestinians, including 2 critically. The injuries came during a Gaza protest organized by the enclave's Islamist rulers Hamas and other factions in support of Jerusalem, where Palestinian clashes with Israeli police helped spark an 11-day Israel-Hamas conflict in May. Bracing for hostilities, the military said it had sent additional forces to the Gaza border area. The violence follows an Israeli announcement of a resumption of Qatari aid to Gaza, a move seen as bolstering a fragile Egyptian-mediated truce to the May fighting. The U.S. East Coast is bracing for arrival of Hurricane Henry as it threatens to bring fierce winds and heavy rains that could cause dangerous storm surge and flooding across the region. As of Saturday morning, the storm was gathering strength, packing 120 km/h winds while it meandered north about 180 miles east of North Carolina. On its current track, Henry is expected to make landfall in Long Island, New York or southern New England today. The National Hurricane Center has warned Henry could produce storm surges along the coast in New England and rainfall in isolated areas. If Henry strikes southeast New England as a hurricane, it will be the first direct hurricane landfall since Bob almost to the death in 1991. Shifting focus to Mexico. In Mexico, at least 8 lives were lost as Hurricane Grace lashed the country's Gulf Coast, setting off a trail of destruction before weakening further. The hurricane dumped torrential rains, causing severe floods and mudslide. Grace smashed windows, downed trees, power cables and telegraph poles, leaving debris strewn around Tecolutla. Grace, that became one of the most powerful storms in years, to hit Mexico blew maximum sustained winds of 125 miles per hour. The National Hurricane Center forecast Grace would dump 6 to 12 inches of rain over eastern and central Mexico through Sunday and up to 18 inches in some areas. The heavy rainfall will likely cause areas of flash and urban flooding. Following a devastating earthquake that shook Haiti on August 14th, rescue efforts continue on Saturday as the country continues to struggle over a lack of aid to remote areas of the impoverished Caribbean country, hardest hit by last week's devastating earthquake that killed more than 2,000 people. Exasperation over the time it is taking for aid to come through began to boil over on Friday, with residents attacking aid trucks in several towns across the south of nation. The official death toll from the earthquake stands at around 2,189 people, with an estimated 332 still missing. Residents in towns across the country, rural countryside, are still digging for bodies believed to lie underneath the rubble. Tens of thousands of homes are in ruins, leaving many families with no option but to sleep outside despite torrential downpour at night. Meanwhile, Mexican rescuers have also joined Haitians in search for quick survivors under rubble. Several countries, including the US, have already dispatched aid and rescue teams. In an update in the Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny case, the U.S. has imposed additional sanctions against Russia over the alleged poisoning of Navalny. In a statement, the U.S. State Department said the U.S. will impose a second round of sanctions on the Russian Federation over its use of Novichok nerve against agent in the August 2020 poisoning of Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny. The statement also said that there would be restrictions on the permanent imports of certain Russian firearms. The UK and US also issued a joint statement on the first anniversary of Navalny's poisoning, calling on Russia to comply with the Chemical Weapons Convention. Well, in California's El Dorado County, wildfires continue to ravage, scorching more than 8 lakh acres and destroying 245 buildings. The blaze has compelled thousands of people to flee their homes. Meanwhile, the U.S. Forest Service has announced a complete shutdown of the El Dorado National Forest through September 30th because of the Caldor fire. The Lebanese Central Bank will open a temporary account providing additional subsidies for fuel imports up to a maximum of $225 million until the end of September in a bid to ease the country's fuel crisis. A statement issued after a meeting of officials including President Michael Aoun and Central Bank Governor Riyad Salameh said the Ministry of Energy would issue fuel prices. Lebanese President Michael Aoun said the government treasury will bear the cost of the continuation of the fuel subsidies that was decided on Saturday. Earlier, the central bank said that the government had decided to raise the exchange rate used to price fuel £8,000 to the dollar from the previous level of $3,900 to the dollar, effectively increasing fuel prices. And now let's take a look at the updates on the COVID-19 front from across the world. Here are the numbers on your screen. COVID-19 has infected so far over 21 lakh people across the country, across the world, I beg your pardon, while the number of recoveries stand about 18 lakh globally. The virus has claimed more than 36,000 lives worldwide. US continues to remain worst affected with the disease, where the number of cases have crossed 3 lakh, while over 6,44,000 fatalities have been registered so far. And back home, President Ramnath Kovind has extended greetings of RAKSHABANDHAN to countrymen. In a tweet, the president said, and I quote, "RAKSHABANDHAN greetings to all fellow citizens. The festival is a symbol of love, affection and trust. Let us resolve to build a harmonious society where safety and dignity of women are given utmost importance and they fulfill their aspirations freely," unquote. Even Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has greeted the nation on the occasion of RAKSHABANDHAN. He has tweeted, and I quote again, "Happy RAKSHABANDHAN. RAKSHABANDHAN is a celebration of special and deep-rooted bond of love and respect between brothers and sisters. On this auspicious day, let us resolve to uphold the dignity of women and ensure a safe environment for them at all times," unquote. In fact, Prime Minister Modi has also extended greetings to the nation on the occasion of RAKSHABANDHAN. In a tweet, Prime Minister said, and I quote, "Greetings to countrymen on the occasion of RAKSHABANDHAN." Union Minister for Railways Ashwini Vaishnav also celebrated RAKSHABANDHAN in Odisha. A woman security personnel tied Rakhi to the Union Minister in Kalahandi district. The minister is on a visit to Odisha as part of the Jan Ashirwad Yatra. And before we wrap up News Connect, a quick look at the top stories we're tracking for you. 3 aircraft bring back over about 300 Indian nationals from Afghanistan. 2 aircraft return to Delhi's IGI International Airport. Indian Air Force's C-17 aircraft returns to Indian Air Base this morning. Repatriated Indians thank government for its urgent efforts in bringing them back, recounts the ordeal faced in Afghanistan. Further evacuation still underway. Prime Minister Narendra Modi pays his last respects and homage to the late leader Kalyan Singh. Says late Kalyan Singh made public welfare the mantra for his life. Political leaders from across the party also pay rich tributes to the departed soul. Nationwide vaccination campaign continues in full swing. More than 58 crore COVID vaccines administered across the country so far. Active cases of COVID across the country comes down to 3,53,000. Nation celebrates RAKSHABANDHAN today. Festival symbolizes the bond of love between brother and sister. President, Prime Minister wish the nation on the occasion of RAKSHABANDHAN. And with that, it's time to wrap up this edition of News Connect, your weekend dose of all the top trending national and international stories. We'll be back next Saturday. Meanwhile, continue staying with us on DD India for more news and updates. Thanks. Namaskar.